Every great hero needs a great villain. It's a saying almost as old as time and has even kind of become cliche to say at this point, but this saying is just as true today as it was when it was first coined. Because without a proper antagonist, our heroes simply can't shine. We need a villain to poke and prod our protagonists in order to force them to stretch, grow, and change as characters. And at the end of the day, stories are all about change, because if nothing changed or took place, well, there would be no story. And today I want to discuss perhaps my favorite movie villain of all time, Syndrome. I think he is a perfectly written character that does absolutely everything we need and want an antagonist to do. Perhaps the greatest aspect of Syndrome's character is that he starts off as a bright-eyed kid who just wants to be a hero. He looks up to and idolizes Mr. Incredible and just wants to help him. He even takes on the hero name Incrediboy, hoping to become his idol's sidekick. But as he would soon learn, Mr. Incredible works alone. And while this rejection by Bob does ultimately send Syndrome down the path of becoming a supervillain, Buddy is actually far more than just this movie's antagonist. In many ways, he is Mr. Incredible. And what I mean by this is that Buddy is a reflection of Bob, in particular all of his worst traits. You see, Mr. Incredible's rule of working alone is his biggest flaw, and it leads to him pushing people away. He loves being a hero more than anything and doesn't want to let others into his life in a meaningful way, so that he can continue doing his hero work in the way that he sees fit. But ultimately, the very idea of being a hero is tarnished by Mr. Incredible's actions. And whether or not he did so intentionally, he managed to end heroing for not just himself, but for everyone, just the same as he crushed Incrediboy's dreams. And Syndrome reflects this selfishness and desire to work alone extremely well. You see, Syndrome understands that being a hero is the most important thing in the world to Mr. Incredible, just as it used to be for himself. So he dangles the chance to put the suit back on and do more hero work in his former idol's face. He baits him with his greatest desire just so he can pull the rug out from underneath his feet. Syndrome plans to make everyone super so that Mr. Incredible is no longer special. He wants to strip Bob of the very thing that was taken from Syndrome when he was a kid, because if everyone is super, no one is. Which would of course include Mr. Incredible. Syndrome essentially wants to ice him out of the hero life, which is exactly what Bob did to Buddy and what Bob did to every hero if you really think about it. Despite being scorned by Mr. Incredible, Syndrome has adopted his worst traits. And throughout the film, we see Syndrome has also taken on the I work alone mindset, as anyone that works for him on his private island is truly just a pawn in his scheme, just a means to an end, including Mirage even. And this is of course why Mirage eventually betrays Buddy. Just as Mr. Incredible scorned those who were close to him, Syndrome has done the exact same thing. Because he too is selfish. He doesn't care about Mirage as a person, he merely cares about his end goal and sticking it to Mr. Incredible. Just the same as Mr. Incredible never cared about Buddy as a person, he only cared about getting to be a hero. And we get a glimpse into Syndrome's psyche when he says the following to Bob. "You, sir, truly are Mr. Incredible. You know, I was right to idolize you. I always knew you were tough, but tricking the probe by hiding under the bones of another super? Oh man, I'm still geeking out about it. And then you had to just go and ruin the ride. I mean, Mr. Incredible calling for help? Help me, help me. Lame, 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 lame." Essentially, Buddy views calling for help as a sign of weakness, because that's what Mr. Incredible's rejection instilled into him. So the idea of Mr. Incredible needing help is actually disgusting to him. He has truly taken the working alone mindset and ran with it to the extreme. And the keyword I kept mentioning in the intro of this video is ultimately what separates these two characters by the end of the film, and that keyword is change. You see, Mr. Incredible makes the decision to finally trust others and allow them to help him. He accepts his family's aid and shatters through the I work alone mindset, and begins thinking about being more than just a hero. And by the end of the film, his responsibilities as a father have supplanted his desire to be a hero. He conquered his past self and his old flaws while Syndrome fails to. Syndrome is someone who is tragically stuck in his ways, and is sickened by the thought of needing help. Even as his plan is crumbling all around him, he can't adapt and learn to grow. While yes, Mr. Incredible was way too harsh with him and should have let him down easy, Syndrome just can't overcome his deep-seated desire to retaliate. He needs to take the most precious aspect of Bob's life away from him, because that's precisely what was taken from Buddy. And this is classic villain behavior, and is why he abducts Jack at the end of the film. If being a father is now Bob's most important role in life, then Buddy is going to try to take that away from him too. But ultimately, Syndrome's undoing is his failure to change. In his mind, heroes are known for wearing capes. It's a staple of their wardrobe. So he too wears a cape with his suit, and as we all know, this is what ultimately leads to his death. And even though it's rather simple, even just the visual idea of Mr. Incredible being willing to forego a cape with his costume, while Syndrome couldn't resist it, is a beautiful symbolization of their dynamic. For a while, they were one and the same. Two selfish individuals who pushed others away so that they could have the spotlight. But in the end, one of them was able to grow past their selfish ways and change for the better, while the other died holding on to all of these negative traits. So ultimately, Mr. Incredible defeating Syndrome is representative of Bob defeating who he used to be. And this is why I think Syndrome is a perfect movie antagonist. His entire psychology and outlook on life was shaped by our lead hero, and he ultimately takes on all of the negative traits that our protagonists slowly learn to overcome. He was the reflection of Mr. Incredible that Bob managed to shatter. Well, if you made it this far, please let me know in the comments, who's your favorite movie villain of all time? You know, a character you just love to hate. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more Screen Stories content. Until next time, peace.